the beginning of July by the Devil's Elbow Bridge. I've been 50 for 3 whole days now. Evelyn Waugh said that the best time of the summer holidays was the last day of term. And this time of year is the equivalent therein. A big sun-filled chasm before the summer opens out properly. Bulrushes, butterflies, the sounds of coots and wood pigeons, the shadow of birds flying on the water's surface, pockets of heat, and the wind in the trees. Last time I was here, I could feel the ice forming on my corduroy safari suit, a nasty business by any measure. Also last time I was here, Harris told his famous burnt pants story. Maybe by the time you're watching this, hyperlinks will be a thing of the past, and you can simply close your eyes and think burnt pants in order to receive the narrative. But for our purposes today, this is the beginning of the Wyrley and Essington Canal. Behind me, back a stretch, are Wyrley and Essington. Essington, of course, being most famous as where Judas Priest played their first ever gig at the Essington Working Men's Club, and Wyrley perhaps more famous for its George Adelgee, Arthur Conan Doyle associations these days. But they come on, snaking through the northeastern edge of the Black Country, through Brown Hills and Bentley, and arrive here. There's a lad in a wolf's top over there who's stopped on his bike eating his crisps. I wonder if he stopped to eat the crisps, or in awkward deferential reverence to the art that's being made.
It's the crisps.
Yeah, probably is, isn't it? I really like David Sylvian, but I remember laughing for 14 hours solid when I heard that he'd made an album called Dead Bees on Cake, and to be honest it still makes me laugh. If, however, he'd made one called Burnt Pants on Spike, I would have treated it with the solemnity that it deserves.
Careful, Cummings. There's some Moathouse lads over there. They're going to get you. They're going to burn your pants and put them on the spikes of them railings over there as a warning to stay off your side of the canal.
Will they actually?
Yeah. Run, Cummings, run.
I remember hearing Graham Linehan and Arthur Matthews talking about the making of Father Ted, and Linehan in particular was very vocal about the fact that he'd failed to notice how beautiful the place was in which he was making the programme at the time, and that seems to me emblematic of age and youth. One thing you notice as you get older is just how little you noticed when you were younger. Beautiful buildings that you inhabited without even realising that they were beautiful. Also, entire species that you don't register up to a certain point, a flash point in your life. I remember being in St Albans when I was 21, walking down to the Abbey and becoming entranced with these strange bony-headed birds, coots that I'd never seen before or even thought of before, messing around in the water, having a right old laugh like they are now. Makes me wonder as I approach my 50s and 60s and hopefully beyond, what will I notice then that I'm not seeing now? Swathes of architectural detail, or entire species that previously I hadn't even registered the existence of. Something to look forward to. It's like I'm back at 23A Farlands Road, in my bedroom, on my corduroy sofa, upside down, my legs stuck up in the air. The ceiling is the floor and the floor is the ceiling. The lampshade is an ornament, stuck straight up on its taut cord. I often see the world upside down, and sometimes the wrong way round too. I was 17 before I realised that the bull insignia on the front of the Bullring shopping centre was actually a bull. I'd been seeing it as a brontosaurus all those years, seeing as its tail as its head and vice versa. And I was running down towards the powerhouse one evening and I thought, oh, it's a bull, I get it. Just one of the great lost dinosaurs of the West Midlands. Reminds me of that line from Ambulances by Philip Larkin too, and sense the solving emptiness that lies just under all we do, and for a second get it whole, so permanent and blank and true. There's a sense that even though the reflection masquerades as the real bottom of the canal, that there's something even beneath that, and that by shattering the surface we'll find out. Other than a couple of clips, I've never seen Nans Follies by the great Ian Nairn, and in a way I'm glad that there's some of his work that I still can't access in the internet age. Reminds me of those long gone days when I would have to travel to pubs in different counties just to hear certain tracks that were on jukeboxes that I couldn't get hold of. Books that were out of print, remember those? But Nairn was obviously interested in follies, and interesting they are. The Black Country is almost a folly for those who revel in and feel its aesthetic quality at all. It's not quite a folly because its crumbling parts did once serve their original purpose, whereas a fake ruin never was a Cistercian abbey or a castle as the Victorians constructed them all over landscaped parks in England. But they do share something in that their romance rests upon a lost purpose. The sense of flowers growing through the cracks, the sense of an outline disappearing. And a lot of the Black Country's got that quality. It's like the gatefold cover of Led Zeppelin 4, the little picture of the chap on the wall, and the flats that look very much like the flats in Heathtown behind. Canals seem to keep that sort of quality locked in the way that they are forgotten about and don't quite interact with the cityscape or the townscape around them. It's a pity really, because just occasionally, like here, they do. Over the other side of the road there's a stretch of houses that turn their back on them, that act as if they don't exist, and I always think that's a shame. When I see backs of houses that lead down to the canal and that have clearly been built with that view in mind, just like George E. Street's law courts were built in London so that they could be visually accessed along the road rather than from a way back, because he realised that a lot of those buildings were never going to be demolished and therefore your view of them was going to be limited. It's a shame that somebody doesn't invest that amount of time in creating a canalscape. And when these things were built in the 40s, the 50s, no one did. I think it's time someone did. Bentley Bridge, and behind me is the beginning of the Bentley Arm Canal. It's also, sadly, the end of the Bentley Arm Canal. It doesn't extend any further anymore. It used to, all the way to Willenhall, in fact. You might remember in a previous episode me diving down beneath the road and into it, saying something about the rust brown, soil black, bottle green, black country aesthetic. That or Planet of the Apes, the usual sort of thing, you know. The sounds have changed. There's the smell of fried oil, glimpses of other vistas, suburbia streaking in, slices of life. Makes me feel like Burt Lancaster in The Swimmer, rather than Charlton Heston in Planet of the Apes. Diving down and emerging time and again as I crawl across suburbia towards the city, towards my inexorable destination. It's worth pointing out what a damn shame it is I don't look like Burt Lancaster in The Swimmer as well. As I said outside the Deep in Hull, I'm a big fan of the literal and easily associative in art and civic sculpture. I really like the way those two big arches relate so easily to one another, each in turn reminding you of other things. The one inside the bridge reminds me of the Great Chancel Arch at Tickencote Church in Rutland. And that, of course, in turn, reminds me of layers upon layers of trilobites, like the ones in Dudley Museum and Art Gallery, which reminds me of the closed-up spaces in that gallery that I mentioned in the Dudley episode, waiting for someone to turn on the light and find them all again. Which reminds me of turning on the light in the middle of the night to discover that I'm not in my own bathroom, but in fact in Malvern Station on a December twilight in 2010. Which reminds me of being at the top of Malvern Beacon with my brother and my father smoking a cigar on the day of the royal wedding in 1981. Which of course reminds me of finding a dead bird with Julian Hodges in Ham Dingle just after some boys swore at us, just after Margaret Thatcher got into power. Which of course in turn reminds me of the back cover of Boys and Girls by the Human League and the day that I found it in a little record shop in London. Which of course reminds me of the giant whale inside the Natural History Museum in South Kensington. Which of course reminds me of that sequence in Return to Planet of the Apes with the series of receding mirrors and the receding canvases in order to explain the nature of time, the artist never visible. I could go on. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps on this petty pace from day to day. I wonder if Shakespeare would have liked Cummings your way. I think he would have done. Something that has been hitherto absent on this film about canals, a canal boat. What did I say? Burt Lancaster in The Swimmer. You can picture me inside, huddled around the long defunct fireplace, staring into the heart of the light, the silence.
think we should have had you swimming the length of the canal in a moody monochrome black and white, like the Lynn Ramsey short film, The Swimmer.
I don't know that version. Which one is it? Is that like you know, a modern interpretation of the Burt Lancaster classic, or an entirely different thing?
A different thing.
Okay.
I believe.
Right, okay. Well, it's something to think of for future episodes. I bought some trunks the other week in Banbury. They got a nice floral design on. Little bit tight round the waist, but you know, I can slim into them. I used to find dead cars inordinately exciting when I was a teenager. Not sure why. Seem to remember doing a lot of very pretentious paintings of them. Did you ever do any pretentious paintings when you were a teenager, Harris?
No.
No. If you had done, what sort of things would have been in them, do you think?
Disposable Japanese raincoats.
Horsley Fields, end of the line. You have reached your destination. I'm off to get on one of those.